Hello. Hello. Well, welcome back to your favorite program, Talk Shop, where we tell it like it is and let the chips fall where they bloody hell may. And as we say all the time, folks, truth crashed to earth shall rise again. And we have always made this promise to our brothers and sisters in the Jandam crusade. I call them the apostles of Jandam. I'm saying this time we won't sit down and watch you Jandam the whole country. We shall crash your Jandam with the truth. And okay. And I like to say something I always say. What time is it, folks? And the answer you always give me is one thing. It's nation time. It's nation time, and we shall build this nation. And today, even before I start, I'd like to say a big up to Mrs. Wiafe. She's visited from the UK, and she was at Cactus Creek. Cactus Creek. She was at Cactus Creek last week, and she loved it. And we had a time, great time. And she listens to me, so I said, Mrs. Wiafe, I'll big you up. So Mrs. Wiafe from London, big ups to you. Okay, folks. What are we talking about today? Very serious. But before I start anything, I want to play a clip that I think is Honorable Bua. He said in Parliament, I think that was after Nanado had given his last speech in Parliament. He said something. And folks, what he said, we have what I call the narrow definition of what he said, or the narrow interpretation of what he said. And then we have the broader interpretation of what he said. And I want to start with that. So just take a listen.
Fellow Ghanaians, we are comforted and strengthened by the following words of scripture. And I'm quoting Exodus chapter 14, verse 13. And I quote, "And Moses said unto the people, Fear you not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see them no more." Bye-bye, Mr. President. It is finished. Let me remind His Excellency, Honourable Speaker, that his tenure in office will remain a timely reminder of how not to govern the country.
We are back. And you know why I played this clip? Because the message was deep and profound. And as I said, there are two ways you can interpret it. We have the narrow interpretation, and we have the broader interpretation. Let me start with the narrow one. The narrow interpretation is when people say, "Hey, Charlie, you know, and that is a very narrow interpretation. That the whole thing, he gave punches. But I'm saying that is a very narrow interpretation. There's a broader interpretation of what he said. And folks, let me tell you, the sum total of everything he was saying, even though when you look at it from a very narrow perspective, you think that he gave it to the MPP. The sum total of everything he was saying is in two words: never again. Never again. And what I'm saying is that everything he said, if you really want to understand the broader interpretation and understanding of what he said, was never again, folks. Never again should we in Ghana allow any government to exhibit such despicable arrogance. Never again. Never again should we allow anyone to come into power and mislead to such abhorrent degrees. Never again. Charlie, the whole thing is never again. Never again should Ghanaians live under any government that is so dismissive. Never again. Never again should any government rule Ghana that is so intolerant. Charlie, I just want you to follow me. So that when you look at what Boaz said, you can get angry if you're MPP, you probably say, it's coming to. No! The immediate trigger was that he was reacting to the MPP regime. But I'm saying the message is for the entire Ghana to understand that what he's saying is never again. If you think that it was just for the MPP, you let NDC also do the same level of arrogance, the same level of dismissiveness, and the same level of intolerance, and see what Ghanaians will do. In the end of what kind of, I say never again, folks. Because the experience we had, and that's why people say all the time, they say those who forget the experience of the past are doomed to repeat the same mistakes in the present. So when he said that the Jesus are gone no more, whatever, he said, but all he's saying, folks, never again. Never again. Why am I going on and on and on about never again? Folks, I think that the 8 years that we went under, for which Boaz says never again, one of the most troubling parts of it for me was the closure of banks. Let me tell you what is troubling. Because most of the banks that were affected are local banks, Ghanaian banks, who had people who had suffered and gone through the mill to the point where they had established banks of international world-class quality. Some. Kofi Amwabeng, UT. No matter what you think of Kofi Amwabeng, no matter what you say about Kofi Amwabeng, he did something that currently in Ghana, he set the benchmark that most banks are now going and killing themselves to follow. And Mwabino Bar first says, we'll give you a loan in 48 hours. He says, what other banks are saying no? We say, why not? If you want a loan, we'll give you 48 hours. And folks, it was like the slogan, that time it was the Unique Trust Financial Services, before he branded to become the UT. And he started this. And like joke, today as we speak, the banks that are notable, and for a bank to be considered said they are in business, no, what do? They have to promise you that they can process your loan very quickly. No behind your bidder. Kofi Amwabeng did that. So I'm saying, whatever mistakes, or any part, institutions have mistakes, whatever infractions, whatever mistakes that UT Bank made, folks, what is the expression? You don't throw the baby away with the bathwater or something. In Kria say if you have a wound, now one snap is so you don't cut your leg and throw it away. You just slowly drive away the one snap. And that's how we put it. Folks, you don't collapse a bank because of whatever reason. The choice for any responsible government, the first choice is, okay, if this bank is in distress, what are the reasons? Is it the corporate structure? Is it the financial? Whatever. How do we fix it so we keep the bank in business? Because you have no idea the contribution Kofi Amwabeng and Unique Trust made to small and medium enterprises in this Ghana. Absolutely phenomenal. And when you just collapse that bank, and this is what I want to talk about, folks. There is no intelligent country, especially in our parts, Africa, that you collapse your local banks, because the local banks are the ones who are actually supposed to be at the commanding heights of your financial industry. But if you collapse all your local banks, you have done evil to your country. And this is what I don't understand, though. The president was talking about, we want to build a Ghana without aid.
You've had 16 bailout programs, with the IMF since independence. It doesn't make sense. We are looking at being within a decade, being able to fashion a new self-sustaining economy. This is the economy that we want to call the Ghana beyond aid. That is, therefore, have an economy which will reduce considerably our dependence on external financing from international donor agencies to finance our education, to finance our health service. These are all areas that a self-respecting nation should be able to finance itself. And we want to consider ourselves in that light.
Do you know how promising that sounds? And you cannot build a Ghana without aid. And on the other hand, your finance minister is collapsing the local banks that are helping build the SMEs in the country. No, UT was phenomenal. If you read his books, and that's what I like about Kofi Amwapa, in his books, he actually identified certain things that he said maybe they grew too fast, maybe some certain things he overlooked because they went to South Africa, they were in Nigeria, and that was the drive. But with the you do not collapse such a bank. For what reason? For what reason? And here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing. Before the bank was collapsed, he said he had met Ken Ofreta. They were friends. These were good friends. They hung out together, they parted. They were friends. And before the bank collapsed, he had met him. And he was so surprised. Not before, I mean the day before. He was so surprised that they had a great conversation, they chat and everything, and not a hint that his bank will be collapsed the next day. Listen to him. I interviewed him some time ago, and he talked a little bit about this. Listen to what he said.
I was the last person to hear of the closure of UT Bank.
You weren't giving heads up?
Nobody told me anything. As a matter of fact, I was probably the last because I went to bed the Sunday night, and Sunday morning, we went to me crash it. I listened to CNN to catch up with world news. So 7 o'clock, I was listening to CNN with my cup of coffee. Then I went upstairs at about 8 a.m. Went to the washroom, then just flipped my phone open. I had 63 missed calls. So I panicked. And I said, what can it be? I wasn't even thinking about the bank at all. Don't forget, I had left the bank about 20 months before that time. So the bank issues were not my issues. So I called my daughter and I said, why is everyone looking for me? And I said, aren't you listening to the news? I said, no. He said, well, it's about UT and Capital Bank. So I switched on the news, and that's when I got to know.
That's when you heard it?
Yes. Meanwhile, by 6 a.m., the government or Bank of Ghana and policemen had gone to UT premises and destroyed the signages and everything. 6 a.m. And I got to hear about it 8 a.m. Incidentally, and this one beats me because I had a call from my own brother, the Minister of Finance, the day before, that Sunday, 3 p.m., and we chatted. I asked about his wife and everything, nothing. He didn't tell me anything. Maybe because he couldn't tell me, or he shouldn't tell me, or he didn't feel like telling me. So,
folks, this is what I'm saying. If you say somebody is a friend and somebody is a key player in the finance industry and you really like them and you want their business to grow and there is a problem with the bank, you hint, oh Charlie, Kofi, but like joke, the Bank of Ghana says this or that or something, whatever they said. So Charlie, let's be careful because and before they close the bank, you meet him and Giorgio. So whatever the problem is, try and fix it. But when the day before the closure, you're absolutely quiet and you carry on a normal conversation. And the next day, he's in Kukuruntumi hanging out and he says he has all these missed calls. People calling him, say, Charlie, what has happened? Your bank has been closed. That tells me that there was evil intention. That tells me that you knew exactly what you're doing. I'm not God, so I won't get into the motives of why you would carry on a conversation, normal conversation with somebody, when at the same time in your mind you know that The next day, this man wake up to a collapsed bank. That one day, I leave it to him and to everybody to judge. But for me, dear, the intentions were not good. So UT was collapsed. Okay? Beyond even, I don't like the bank or whatever, the workers, the numerous workers that UT had employed, just to lay them all off like this, bam, the collapsed bank. And is that the only option? We'll talk about that later. There was an option of what you can do to save the banks. There was an option. And from what I know, and from what the figures came out, what Ghana needed was like 9 billion cedis to save the banks and get them to survive. 9 billion cedis. However, the choice was made to use 29 billion to collapse them. If the intentions were genuine and noble, I leave it to you. I won't judge. I won't judge. So the people that were thrown out.
And again, for the staff, some of them at least worked their hearts out. And therefore, just to be left like that with that certain news was a bit painful.
The distress level, folks, that's one thing. UT was collapsed. And I'm saying whatever you have against Kofi Amwabeng, he started a trend that was so amazing and that was so revolutionary in banking. For back to back to back, 3 years consecutively, back to back to back, he was adjudged the most respected CEO of the nation. How can somebody that you call the most respected CEO of the nation have his bank collapse without any notice? And then not only collapse the bank, there was actually an effort to criminalize him. As we speak today, Kofi Amwabeng is still in court. Criminalize the man. Kofi Amwabeng is still in court, folks. It is very, very, very sad. Ghana, who has done something so remarkable for Ghana, for Africa, for the world, his bank is collapsed. He's criminalized. His passport was taken away from him. Maybe you don't know. At one point, I said, "Oh, Charlie, he's tired. Let me go and chill in America's one." When they go to the embassy, they told him that the national security has written a letter that he's a flight risk. First of all, the passport was taken. When it was given to him and he tried to travel, they say the national security has written to the major countries, say this man is a flight risk. He's a criminal. He's under investigation. Don't give him a visa. So his visa was denied. Folks, the intentions to me are evil. If I'm wrong, fine. But I stand by the fact that there is not a way to treat a human being. You know, folks, especially when most of us know that before it became UT, at that time I think it was Unitra Financial Services, the number of people, including the big shots in the MPP that borrowed money from Kofi Amwabeng. I won't name anybody, it's not in my duty, but I can assure you, say paying for representing the party went to borrow from UT.
The fact that I sponsored MPP, it can't be further from the truth. MPP, because I'm an Achim man,
yeah,
and they are seen to be from Achim, people can't believe why Achim people come and then they will take Achim man's bank.
Mobile power, my catastrophe. Let's put aside in the meantime. Look at Capital Bank. You know what is very, very interesting with Capital Bank is this. When I was considering people for the other show that will come back soon, the KSM show, you know, that show celebrated Ghanaians of ingenuity. That was the key mark of the KSM show. You say Ghana ni be dear, and is worthy celebrating, is worthy lifting them up for the youth of Ghana to realize that, Charlie, there can be a future for all of you. Then we interview them. And it's very, very funny. One person on my list that I wanted to interview was Atu Asian. That's when I discovered that he was born in Aguna Swedru. They say he's 1 out of 11 kids, or a hustler. you know. And then later on, I found out that he was actually selling foods. Atuese, not on foods. And foodstuffs to make a living, to pay his way through school. Atuese is not like me call Harvard, me call this university abroad. He was educated right here in Ghana. And at the age of 29, and was starting the banking. At 29, isn't this a role model for Ghanaian kids to know, to understand that it is possible? So I had in mind that actually I will meet this guy, and I wanted to interview him and showcase him to Ghanaians. Actually, this is what I'm talking about when we say it is possible, it can be done in Ghana. You know, so that was before the collapse of the banking system, and when the bank was collapsed and all the furore about the money they said they had chopped and everything, and this to me is very, very significant, folks. Yewe UT, a man who was lending money to top gurus of the MPP, criminalized him and threw him out of business. Okay, fine. We are now a capital bank. A bank that you collapsed because you say the bank is in distress and whatever reason you gave to collapse the bank. And this one, courtesy to my good friend Paul Adomochiri. He had an interview during which he interviewed Atuese. And I'm going to show you a clip of what Atuese said on the Paul Adomochiri show, courtesy of Good Evening Ghana. Take a look at this clip.
Was the bank stressful? Was it distressed?
You know, you see, like I said to you, if the bank was that bad, our current finance minister, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, together with the chief executive of Enterprise Group, were in my office.
Kelly Gajepo.
Kelly Gajepo.
To do what?
We're interested to buy Capital Bank.
No, hold on. Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister.
Yes.
And Kelly Gajepo, his partner at Data Bank and Enterprise, came to see you.
Yes.
This is when Ken was finance minister.
No, before he became finance minister.
Okay.
That's right.
They came to you,
yes,
that they wanted to buy your bank.
Buy the bank. If it was that stressful, would they have done
so this
that?
which year?
This was 2016.
I see.
Yes.
They wanted to buy it.
They wanted to buy Capital Bank.
For Data Bank or for Enterprise?
Well, the letter they gave to us,
they wrote?
Enterprise Group. Yes, I have a letter to that effect. I'm just letting you know that if that bank was bad, a renowned investment banker like the caliber of our finance minister will not be saying that I'm interested in picking up that asset.
Folks, can you imagine? And you know, you heard the evidence. He said at one time, Ken Ofori-Atta, Data Bank finance minister, and Kelly Gajepo, I think CEO of Enterprise, came to him. They wanted to buy Capital Bank. Actually, this is common sense. Me KSM, as much as I don't know about business, well, I do know about business, but as much as I don't know I don't have the investment intelligence of a guru. If I see that there's a company that is not worth anything, why the hell will I want to go and buy the company? I only want to buy the company because me sure the company has potential. It's as simple as that too. Me sure this company has potential. So let me go and buy it and then build on the potential that the company has. And you heard, he talked to Paul Adomochiri and he says, they had approached me. They wanted to buy Capital Bank. So for whatever reason that you say it was collapsed and the reasons you gave, I remember something that his defense minister had said, I think it was Dominic Ayini. And take a look at this.
The subject matter of the criminal charges belonged to some other person and were dishonestly appropriated by the accused persons, either together or as individuals. And the basic point that I was making in court on behalf of the defense team is the fact that we need to look at the source of the money critically, because basically this is founded on liquidity support that was provided by the Bank of Ghana. And the liquidity support is described in the facts grounding the charges as if it still remained the property of the Bank of Ghana. But we all know that liquidity support granted to a bank is more or less a loan with interest that is to be paid for by the bank. And therefore, we took the view that once the money was transferred to the bank and the bank disbursed it in accordance with its own internal procedures, it was a legitimate banking transaction that the bank engaged in. And therefore, there is no reason why any person should be charged, with stealing. And the reason why I thought it was going to be groundbreaking from a jurisprudential point of view is the fact that all these transactions were done with the consent of the bank, that is Capital Bank. At least there have been board approval by the duly constituted board members of the bank.
Folks, I know that they are talking a lot of legalese, all the law, but the simple, basic thing he's saying is that the case against him was dead on arrival. You kind of know. The case against him was dead on arrival. So, folks, when you listen to this, and when you remember what he actually said on Good Evening Ghana, for me, and I could be totally wrong, I always admit I could be wrong, and I could be 100% right. But for me, dear, it looked at me like a personal vendetta, because no intelligent person in their right mind will make an offer to buy something that they say is no good. This thing is disgusting, it's in distress, it's useless. We should discard it. Oh, but anyway, I want to buy it. Really? So, folks, this is what I'm saying. So let me go back to what Boy was saying when he says, never again. That's why I'm there. No start here. Folks, never again should we allow anybody in the country to decide that this is the first time we had in our history that members of the same party, how many ministers, I think 80 or plus, sent a petition to the president and said, this man that you have as your finance minister, Mr. President, is not working.
My name is Andy Apiakubi, and I'm only here as spokesperson for the majority group, without more. We have had occasions to defend allegations of conflict of interest, lack of confidence, trust against the leadership of our finance ministry. We are by this medium communicating our strong desire that the president change the minister of finance without further delay in order to restore hope into the financial sector and reverse the downward trend in the growth of the economy. Honorable Kenneth Oforiatta be removed from office.
First time in the history of Ghana, it's not working. Please let him go. So when you put everything together and you listen to after telling Paul, they wanted to buy it. And well, he's in jail now. And before I continue, let me take this opportunity. I beg you. This is not about the banking thing. With a justice opportunity, I beg. Mr. President, I beg you. Please, this man, in my view, has been wronged. He's languishing in jail. Folks, if you go and visit Atu right now, the man is in a wheelchair. He had an accident while in jail, and I think he had a very, very severe spinal injury. So right now, the man is in extremely bad shape. He's in a wheelchair. And the wheelchair is not because he's in a wheelchair, Keko. The wheelchair is because he has a problem connected to his spine, connected to so many things. This man wears, I'm trying to remember the name. There's this leg brace that you wear. It says stockings. I don't remember the name. He has to be in one all the time. And this thing is designed to help the blood flow in your legs. Have you heard of this? What I wanted, you can Google it. Deep vein thrombosis is how your blood can clot and that can finish you in a matter of seconds. So he always has to be in that to prevent blood clots. All I'm saying is that the man is in jail. Obia will see bank at 29 years old. How many people in this country, in this world, can hustle and become something? Whatever the mistakes, whatever, what they're finding now, but at 29, how many can hustle to have a bank? And at one point, the bank had employed 2,700 people. And when it was collapsed, I think they only maintained maybe 2%. The rest of them was thrown away. Please go and read up on it. Not me saying, when it comes to digital banking, one of the banks that led in that direction was Capital Bank. They had something called speed money. I'm not too clear, but when it comes to digital banking, Capital Bank was one of the main trailblazers. This whole money banking, mobile money banking, go and find out the role Capital Bank played in this. And go and find out who this Ato ACN is and how all of that came. So whatever the mistakes I made, all I'm saying is that man or done swim. And the spinal injury is so bad that he's still taking treatment. Physio, so many things that he's taking that 3 times every week. They have to drive him from Nsum. Somebody who has a bad spine, driving from Nsum and all these lovely smooth roads from Nsum to Accra 3 times a week, so that he will come to Accra to 37. Why? Why a Bonnie Bay? Because his bank was allegedly in distress? Or because he said no to Ken? You decide, not me. But whatever it is you decide, I'm using this platform to appeal to His Excellency. You have the powers of clemency. And if it's for any reason, if you say he has stolen whatever he thinks, that his attorney came to tell us that it is all dead on, it was basically frivolous and dead on arrival. But if you say so, whatever it is, he is in a condition right now that is dangerous to his health. I'm begging the president. I never thought I would do this for the whole country. But I can't exactly call JM, Your Excellency, please. No. So I can use this platform for all Ghanaians to add their voice and plead that Ato ACN does not belong there. And I'm hopeful that he will come out sooner than later. I'm hopeful that he, through clemency or whatever things, and whatever it takes, I want to sit down with him and let him tell his story. And then let Ghanaians appreciate the pain, the horror of a young Ghanaian being so dedicated that at 29 he started a bank. I think the bank was first called Capital Plus, and then he rebranded it to Capital Bank. And the bank was performing so badly that the finance minister wanted to buy it. And Kelly, I think, and if I'm wrong, fine. But I think until I am proven wrong, I think part of the punishment was because he said, no, I won't sell my bank. And that's why he's languishing in jail. Mr. President, I'm begging you, please speak up. So folks, I just wanted to use this example for us to understand that it is a horrific experience for the whole country to lose our banks that are controlled by Ghanaians. Group Indum, He was the only bank, the Indian bank, he was in every, rural areas. In Krasi, that Stanbic won't go there, Barclays won't go there, the big, huge banks won't go to Fabodebe to Choko. He was there, giving assistance to for small farmers. That bank collapsed. Whatever he did that was wrong, that we couldn't correct with any corporate restructuring or something, I don't know. But do you know, can you imagine the number of people? Capital Bank had 2,700 people that they had employed. So they will multiply that with the family and other things. You know, you're talking about major numbers here. 2,700 people. I think for mobile banking alone, he had committed about 1,500 people. This is Capital Bank, Accra. And if you want to compare, then what about Group Indum that was spread all over rural areas? How many people were working for Group Indum? And things like this, folks. You don't collapse a bank. And when you have the option, either I can collapse or either I can make them stand up and solve the crisis, why would you even decide, so let me collapse? Unless you have some intentions that I don't know. And as I said in the beginning, by their own estimates giving out, it would have taken 9 billion to get the banks to stay afloat. 9 billion. But in our eternal wisdom, we thought it was wise to use 29 billion to collapse the banks. Which country that has banks do not go into financial distress? The United States of America, the US of A, the champion US of A. They had banks like Bank of America, one of the major banks in this world. Citigroup, powerful. At one point, I think they had to introduce something that they called the TAP, Troubled Assets Relief Project, to come and just help save the banks. And that's how they saved the Bank of America. That's how they saved Citigroup. Troubled Assets Relief Project. It's been done. The UK had to do some nationalizing of banks to keep them afloat. Switzerland, Norway. Please just go on the internet and check. Major countries have gone through that. Kenya, they had to actually do restructuring and everything to keep KBC afloat. So folks, banks going distress, it's not a new thing. Even Nigerian banks, Nigeria, they had to do some restructuring and everything to keep their banks going in Nigeria. They took measures to restructure to keep the bankings going with the issues of how much capital liquidity. It happened in Nigeria. And they are still there. They kept them. And funny enough, those banks are the UBA, Zenith, Access Bank. I'm not saying anything against them all. I'm saying, but these are Nigerian banks because their government had the intelligence to keep them afloat. Ghana. Just imagine if we had also propped UT, if you had propped Capital Bank, if you propped GN, and made sure that they too would be. UT was in South Africa. It was climbing into Nigeria. But the Nigerians have built their banks to the extent that they are in Ghana and practically dominating. And you think that the commanding hands of your banking system should be in the hands of foreigners? They're a joke.
The collapse of the financial institutions was an extremely negligent act. I mean, negligent in the sense that we're not reinventing the wheel. Such difficulties have happened in several countries, in the US, in the UK, and there were precedents. One could have learned from how other countries had dealt with some of these challenges. In some cases, the central bank played the role of a venture capital of a sort, where they, as it were, advance funds to the banks, and even could appoint members to serve on their boards. The Bank of Ghana had authority to even change an MD and prosecute him if need be, and still keep the bank running. We've seen that in some countries. And here we had to collapse the entire banking sector because of one problem or the other. And when the entire banking sector would have required just around 9 to 11 billion to stand on its feet, we decided to collapse the banks and spend well over 25 billion in a very, very, very useless engagement.
So I'm saying this, that whatever happened, if there was a corporate issue, sit down and work it out. Don't collapse them. Boy, I said never again. Oh. That's why I started with this never again tip. Because I wanted to Ghanaians to understand, say, even though it came out under the era of Nana Addo, let no Ghanaian mistake it and say that what Boa was talking about is for the MPP. Now that the MPP is not there, we are okay. Please. And let me tell you one reason the banks aren't back. You know how the banks, JM talked about the banks, we need to bring our banks back and everything. We actually started a program here as one of our agendas to bring back our banks. It is only upon further investigation that I realized that the government itself is not now in a position to bring out the banks. You know why? The conditionalities we have from the IMF loan is a major factor. Because bringing back the banks requests that we take new fiscal policies and a whole new restructuring that will include lots of money and finance from the government. So because we are still paying IMF, whatever we decide to do to bring back the banks has to be in consonance with them. They have to agree, say, oh, they're okay. And I say, hold on, I say, that is how bad it is. You only go and borrow money and they give you conditionalities. You become their servant. So the reason that all of a sudden we're talking about bring back the banks, we'll bring our banks, we have to save our banks, because the IMF conditionalities that was attached to the last loan that the MPP got from IMF states that our banks are tired. They can't. So when I did the research, I realized that they keep it quiet, but they are still sort of negotiating to see whether they'll have some common ground to bring back the banks. But if not, then we shall all hope that by 2026, after we have been able to complete the IMF program in 2026, that is the only time the government will have its own free hands. Actually, now let me bring back my banks. 2026. Mahama, the CD has come down. I say inflation is coming down. The next thing is the banks. Hold on small. You still owe IMF, so you can't now even talk about your banks yet. So, folks, this is what I'm saying. The first point of call is to save the bank. Save it. Keep it afloat. Don't collapse a bank in an African country that needs, as a matter of necessity, say, the commanding hands of the banking system should be their local people. But let me end on this. I did about the banks and I did about everything. But my main point today that I don't want anybody to lose sight of is the clemency. The clemency. And I think that for a person who was selling force, I always say not on force, not on footsteps, to get to the point where at 29, he established the bank, and we'll tell you how that happened. It wasn't overnight. And it's not like he went to the US to study at Harvard and all those big universities you want to talk about. No, the man went to Central to become such a huge figure in banking. I don't think at 29, I don't think where he is now, he should be. Media clemency and America. Even if you say, why Bonnie, the man, the health condition, and yet. So over to you, JM, and to all loving people of this country. Let us keep hope alive. Let us build Ghana. Let us support our youth, that if a youth at the age of 28, 27 cries for better banker, let us make sure that they are rewarded and not punished. Folks, thanks to our being crippled by IMF, We cannot bring the banks back today as we all would wish, but hopefully by 2026 or earlier, if arrangements go through, our banks will come back. But the important thing is this: our message, is to all of Ghanaians to say never again. Let me tell all the presidential candidates, both MPP, well now we know the MPP presidential candidates, Baumia, candidate Japan, Kwame Japan, Duchum, all the candidates, please tell Ghanaians never again. Be bold enough to tell us that you know what you put this country through, and you are assuring Ghanaians that if you become presidents, never again. And all those who will come again for the other party too, never again. Folks, Ghana shall rise again.